chat just got some really
Hold on just a second. I've got to, it's trying to. All right, you're good to go.
okay, great. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Since this is going to be live streamed on YouTube, make sure to share this with anybody who is interested in getting some help with event planning. So my name's Angela McArdle. I am your chair at the national level in the Libertarian Party. And I'm recovering from a minor head cold, so I'm sorry my voice is like a little scratchy and a little nasally. I'm going to cover event planning basics with you, and I'm going to get also maybe very granular in logistics. What I want to do is I want to give you a very good idea of how to approach event planning and how to pull off a successful event. And I don't have extremely detailed slides for you. I think that really simple outline is plenty, but I have a whole lot of information. And I want to go back and forth with you a little bit and sort of get some information so that I give you the most bang for your buck in this, because I appreciate you taking the time to tune into this. So, what kind of event are we holding and why? Um, a lot of the times people get really excited about holding an event for the party and, for the sake of this video, we'll say that it's a party related event. What kind of event are we holding and why? People think, oh, I'm the new county chair, we've got to get started, we're going to hold an event. And I ask, okay, like what's the objective? Do we want to invite a bunch of people to attend this event to network and have a social event? Is it supposed to be fun? Are we holding a fundraiser? Are we trying to get people to sign up and join the party? Are we doing an awareness cause event? Like, are we holding an anti-war rally or a protest? Are we holding signs at the street? What are we doing? And sometimes people don't really stop and think that whole thing through. So the most important thing, I think, with event planning is just right away decide what kind of event you're having before you start planning out all of the details. Is anybody here planning a big event that's coming up soon? You can just shout out if you are. Maybe not. All right. So
Well, we'll have some events in February for the select meeting, which is going to be here in College Station, but I don't know what they are yet. So, in the very earliest stages of planning that.
Very nice. Okay. So what is the general, like vibe and atmosphere that we want to project when we're holding an event? Things to consider are, who are you trying to attract? What's the demographic? And, one of the first answers I get is, like people who love liberty or people who hate the two parties. Or that's a very wide swath of people. And while we certainly want all those people to feel welcome at our event, if we want our event to be successful, we might want to dig into that a little bit more and get a little more granular with it. So, who are we trying to event? So let's say we're going to hold an event, and we're looking for an event space, and that might be a constraint on who we can invite. We want to invite people to a place. What place do we have? Okay, so let's say a brewery nearby or a bar has said that they have a meeting room that we can have for free. Fantastic. And how big is a meeting room? It holds at least 30 people. Great. So now we automatically know that it's going to be, a bar feeling. If you're 21 and under, you're not going to be allowed in. Is that okay? And maybe for you it is, but keep in mind that that's going to prevent um, young teenagers from being able to attend, young college age people. You might be knocking out some potentially really good activists. If you have single moms or people who just like to do things as a family, they may not attend because they can't bring their young children in. So keep that in mind. I give this talk in California a lot. And the one place I tell you to never hold your event is Denny's or an IHOP. Um, hole in the wall diners where it's like noisy and everybody has to sit at a 10 to 12 person booth. and the food is bad and people are dressed poorly and you have bad service, stay away from holding your events at those places. Even if it's your county event and it's your first time meeting up and you're only going to get 5 people, think about what your event space projects and what it says about you. You want an event space that says something really good about you. I've held plenty of events at bars and breweries, and that's fine. So, I don't mean to say that those places are off limits. Just keep in mind who you're trying to attract and whether or not they're going to be able to show up. Do the people who you're going to invite know you exist yet? Because if not, that's another thing to consider. How are we going to communicate to that to them? Is it a place where people might actually happen in upon your event and be interested and sit down? Because that's a really cool thing to consider as well. If you're able to get some foot traffic, that's really great. How should we act at the event? This is something I think that a lot of libertarians don't even consider. So a really great way to greet someone who's new to libertarianism and they just found you on your Facebook group or Google search or whatever is once they come in, you approach them and start hammering them with questions about man, economy, and state and how much of Murray Rothbard's letters that they've read. That's a terrible thing to do, and you should not do it. And it happens, I think, all the time. It's not just, Murray Rothbard in particular, but we have this problem with some of our county events and smaller meetups where our members behave kind of like animals. And certainly not everyone, but it is an issue. And so we want to be really welcoming to people when we're inviting new people to our events. We don't want to wear infighting and internal party conflicts or just internal party drama on our sleeve for brand new people to see all of that. Like, we want to be professional, we want to be inviting, we want to be gracious. If people are not fully libertarian and not all the way there yet, we want to tell them that's okay, and like we're happy to like help them learn a little bit more about the platform and get to know us. That's the kind of attitude that we want to have at events. I usually designate a party ambassador or two at an event, which is not even necessarily not about the Libertarian Party as a whole, but like for just like the local think of it as a party. Who would you want there greeting people and ushering them in and like having conversation and incorporating that new person into the chit chat? I think that that's a really good practice to have for some of our events. And maybe you have 1 or 2 members who are just a little bit ornery and difficult with new members and they're a little too abrasive. Your party ambassador sort of gently blocks that person, and make sure that your new person feels welcome. So I think that's a very good practice to have. And then another thing to think about at your events is are we attracting generals into our movement? Brian McWilliams, our PR guy, had a really good talk about this recently. Or do we want to attract rank and file members? Are we trying to get people just like friendly, to libertarianism and turn them onto it more? Or are we trying to really drill down and have a deep thinking event where we're going to challenge ourselves on, libertarian philosophy, or we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of elections and volunteering and all of that, and make sure that your environment is suitable for whichever one you choose, and that your entertainment is suitable if you're going to be there a really long time with laptops open and trying to study and go over, voter records and membership and all of that. Maybe you want bottomless coffee and you want to have really comfortable seats. If it's just a social meet and greet event, then your seats don't matter. You could have high top bar stools, so on and so forth, but make sure that people are comfortable and that it's suitable for whatever kind of event you're holding. Marketing. How are we getting the word out, and what is our message? I think sometimes we think about this like a little bit too late. You want to be thinking about this like a month out if it's your first event, or if it's, an ongoing event series and you want your next event to be more populated or better, be thinking about this as far in advance as you can. Obviously, we have social media, you have a website, you have a podcast. Yeah, plenty of ways to reach out to people, but who are we trying to reach? Because if we're trying to reach members of the general public and people who are outside of our, libertarian circle, then we might want to reach out further than that. There are, local publications that you could put an ad in. You can try Google AdWords. You can try word of mouth. You could try advertising maybe on some sort of like small niche podcast that has nothing to do with libertarianism, like a real estate podcast or something like that. There's all kinds of interesting creative ways to drive people to your event. And I suggest you look into that if you are trying to bolster your attendance. Logistics. I want to get into event logistics with you. So let me stop screen share and jump over to another one. Second. All right. Let's talk about logistics. How as they pertain to events. What are logistics? They're the detailed coordination of a complex operation involving many people, facilities, or supplies. And it's the cogs, gears, and glue of the many moving parts of a mass mobilization. So this is part of a slide deck from the mass mobilization series that I did for United Independence recently. And basically, they asked me to build a class around how I put together rallies and large movements. So some things that I've done in the past is we got vaccine mandates overturned in the city of LA. We had a huge rally many years ago. Prior to that, I put together a very huge rally in the city of LA to overturn a proposed ban on food sharing in public rights of way, which is essentially a feeding the homeless ban. And I've done a whole lot of events in addition to that. And one of the things that's the most important on these are on making them successful is logistics. People don't necessarily pay a lot of attention to this, or you get going after it's already started, but logistics are just a really important thing. You need accountability if you're going to have an event. Who is planning your event? Without, and I know that some of you who are doing too many things at the local level all by yourselves, I know you feel the pain of this. Without a point person for your event, very little gets done. And it's difficult to decide, whose fault that was. Usually it winds up being you, right? You're in charge of everything, and then people complain to you, and it's a very frustrating experience for you, and you feel that people are very ungrateful, It's just it's not worth that misery. Try having accountability for event planning. Things will go so much better. Your events will be more successful, and you will be much happier and less burned out. So if you're holding a large event, like some of the events I hold, the person who secures the event permit must follow through, right? And everyone knows who that person is. We all have to hold each other accountable. Accountability drives things forward smoothly and identifies your best team players. And those are the people that you're going to thank at the end, because you always got to be thanking the people who do a great job for you. And they're going to be the people who deliver a really good event for you again in the future. Logistics are about vigilance and forward momentum. You have got to be vigilant. You have got to be persistent. It is okay to be a little annoying as a person who is responsible for all of the details of your event. You always want to be moving things forward. An example of that is, saying to yourself, what's one thing with this event that I can make progress on today? And then at the end of the day, like, what's one thing that I completed? Is there one thing on the event I can complete today? For example, for the Rage Against the War Machine event, we're putting on another one in February of next year. And today I'm going to be reaching out to all of the people who sponsored the event last year to ask them if they will sponsor it again. And I will have a list of the ones that I reached out to by the end of the day, and it will be completed. A couple of other party members who are working on that event with me, Tim and Sarah, Sarah will have hotel contracts that she will need signed. And at the end of the day, she will be like, did I bug Angela and pester her enough to make sure that she signed them? Tim will say, did I make sure that Angela got back to me on the company that's setting up the stage and the sound system for us, and did she answer, the following 4 questions? You'll always want to be checking things off and making sure that you're making progress the closer you get to your event day. Now, if it's a much smaller event, it could be something as simple as, did I secure 1 speaker? Did I send out 30 invites? And did I follow up with 30 people? And, maybe that's too much to do in a single day. So, did I follow up with 10 of them this week? Did I follow up with the remaining 20 of them in the next, 4 days when you have more time? But vigilance and forward momentum are what keep your event from falling apart or coming together at the last minute in a very disorganized, frustrating, stressful manner. Delegation and organization. Who is in charge? So many of us have to wear a lot of different hats and do a whole lot of things by ourselves, but it is really good for you to reach out and ask for help. And as many of you know, if you do have help and you have people who are offering to do things and you never give them the chance to complete something, they will fall away and they're no longer volunteers, because people come into this movement like excited, jazzed up and ready to do things. And what they really are craving is like, can you trust me? Can I be responsible for something and help move things forward and advance the cause of liberty? And the best answer for that is yes. And for you to give them something to do. It could be something very simple. It could be something that's more, complex, like they could be your point person for difficult logistics, negotiating a hotel contract for a convention, anything like that. It could be something as simple as I'm going to add you to our Facebook page. You won't be an admin, but you'll have posting privileges. Can you post about the event, 3 times a week? Volunteers are just like so excited and grateful to take part in something. Please utilize them. But please also decide who is in charge, who calls the shots, right? It's really important to know who that is. And it's really important to decide a hierarchy of decision making. If it's a really small event, maybe it's just you and 1 other person. But if it's a large production and you're at the very top, you don't want to become a bottleneck where you make every single decision on your own. People are constantly waiting on you. Your volunteers are frustrated. They're burned out. Like you want to empower the people around you to make decisions that you can trust them with, so that everything moves forward and that people are excited and stoked about the event. And when they're talking about it to their friends, they're not expressing frustration and bitterness. They're just like, yeah, man, I did this thing and I did that thing. And then, Angela did this, or Jacob said that, and it's all coming together. Like you want people to be excited and exuding that energy. And then you also do want to set clear boundaries and protocols for decision making, so this is an event. We want to reach people who are XYZ age, we're trying to do outreach on this issue. Please don't argue about these other topics in the social media comments of it, whatever, try to keep it clean. Try to not use foul language or anything where we're spending more than, like $50. I need to see it before you sign off on it because we're on a tight budget. It's okay to have boundaries. You just want to empower people to go forth and take action within those boundaries. And make sure that the boundaries you set for logistics and decision making are really clear, so people don't get their feelings hurt. So people aren't frustrated with you, so they don't walk off later, because there was some confusion. And you certainly don't want to duplicate work either. That's not a good way to do it. Be organized. I am extremely type A. I need to know, I don't need to make every decision, but I need to know who's making the decisions and how they're making them. And I don't have to be the one controlling the spreadsheet. There are people more organized than me. But I do need to know that things are being documented, taken care of, and how it's being done. Know your strengths. If you are running an event, you have been delegated, voluntold to put together an event, and organization and spreadsheets are not your strength, that's okay. You just want to find someone who that is their strength. And you just want to lean on that person, dictate to them, find a really good logistical person who's just highly detail-oriented, driven, meticulous, share all of your creative ideas with them, input, and just have their help in that respect. Everybody has to play to their strengths, and you or that person, someone's got to maintain organization and not let it fall apart as your event planning progresses. And the other thing that's very important is the share of information and knowledge. You, as you organize things, as you can maintain momentum in your event planning, you want to make sure that everybody else around you knows what's going on. Hey, these are the speakers we booked, or oh man, we're stuck. We can't move forward because we're having this problem. I downloaded, we're using MailChimp and we got canceled, or the credit card has an error in the processing, and 3 of us tried it. We all typed it in. It's just error. Just communicate and share information. That's extremely helpful. It keeps everybody in good spirits, and also opens you up to additional problem solving. Someone may have encountered a problem in a similar way before, and they know the answer. So that's another really good side effect of being organized and sharing information. So putting it all together, what areas do logistics cover, right? Speakers, entertainment, crowd control if it's a very large event, security, permitting, something that sometimes you have to have if it's a free speech event in most areas. As long as you're not building a stage and being stationary, you don't need a permit, but sometimes you do, like for the event that we're holding in DC in February of next year. Audio visual, even at small events, sometimes, like if you're in the meeting room of a restaurant or a bar, you might need a microphone and a small little portable amp. You might want visual aids, you might need a projector. Who's bringing that? Do you have cables? That's the worst nightmare, right? When you put together your event, you think you have all of your equipment and you don't have the right cable. Major bummer. Structural issues. Are you building a stage? Do you have something else? Do you need a podium? Transportation. How's everybody getting there? Is there parking at the restaurant that you picked? That's a big one. That's a big one coming from LA and also living in Austin now. People do not want to go to an event if the parking is impossible. People may show up, drive around for 5 or 10 minutes and literally just give up and go home. Not everybody wants to pay $20 to park. Those of you who don't live in the city are like, this is insane. And I know you're laughing at us, but it is a problem in metropolitan areas. How do you stay organized? Spreadsheets, weekly or bi-weekly, whatever meetings to talk about your event, group communication, group chats, group email threads, and continuity of knowledge from one event to another. Everything you do should really build upon your past experiences. And that's another reason it's really good to work with other people, is because then if you end up having to step back, right, you're just burnt out, you take a new job that is really demanding, and so you don't have time to continue events planning. The person that you've been partnering with knows how to pull things off.
Is that your design, or do you see an example of that?
No, I thought about that.
That's a little bit too shaky.
Hey, Susan.
I need to bring this one down slightly bit so it's tighter.
Hey,
But
Mia.
I couldn't find ones that had
That's kind of neat.
Thanks. Yeah, continuity of knowledge is really important. And there's no perfect way, to hand it off, and it's not guaranteed that things won't, fall apart if you pass your event planning from one person to another, but you want to give them the best possible chance. And regular updates to everyone around you. So those are some highlights on event planning. I want to say one other thing, and then I want to take your questions. And if any of you are planning events, I want to give you as much advice as possible. Is the way you dress at events can matter. And this is oh, I'm a libertarian. I want to do what I want to do. If you're holding a professional event and you want candidates to show up, you should be mindful of the way you are putting yourself together. Please don't be a slob. And that means different things in different demographics. If you're in a rural area and people don't wear a suit, coat, and tie, and they think that's ridiculous and everybody's working class and coming straight from work, whatever, maybe it's a flannel and jeans, but you should know your demographic and you should still dress to impress them and be as professional as possible. Stained t-shirt, holes in your pants. Like, please don't be a slob at these events. We want people to see the party and be like, yeah, like they seem like they have it together. So dress to impress. I attended some classes with a professional networker several years ago, and she gave some really good advice. If you are a lady, you always want to wear a dress and you want to wear bright colors at events, and you will be approached more than anyone else in the room. Women who wear very nice jeans did not have as much networking success as women who wore dresses. Men, if you wore pink, you were the most likely to have successful networking. So keep that in mind if you're trying to hold a networking event, a pink tie or a pink shirt on men. And I know, scream, I don't want to wear pink. But that's just statistically the way that it works. And ladies who wear dresses are usually the most magnetic and charismatic in the room, and they get the most attention. So on that politically incorrect note, I will leave you. I hope this has been informative. I know it was kind of a lot thrown at you, but if anybody has questions on event planning, I would love to help you out.
Hi, Angela. This is Jessie from Montgomery County.
Hello.
Hey, I just wanted to see if you had any kind of examples of how you have kind of calculated and reported out on ROI on events. That's something that,
Yeah,
obviously something
absolutely.
that, yeah.
So what is the goal of the event, right? I think that's another really good thing to set in advance. Are we trying to gain new members? Are we trying to have a fundraiser and hold a lot of money? Are we trying to create awareness of an issue? So if you're just trying to, maybe it's a series of events, like it's a monthly regular meetup. I would say if I was running like a county or just like a local event, like we want new members. And so I'd track that like every quarter, every 3 to 4 months, how many new members did we get? Obviously, if it's a fundraiser, you want to track that by, dollars. And I think that's something that sometimes we're not exactly sure how to price our fundraisers, right? And so maybe this is an event that's not literally for all of our rank and file members. We need to charge a little bit more. And I think that's okay, even though sometimes that might be like a controversial position. So you might want to set it at $100 and see, how many people did we get through the door? Did we raise enough money? Was it successful? What is success, right? If I need to raise money for like a $1,500 filing fee or something, like we want to pay for the event and pay for that filing fee. And then if it's not successful financially, you want to at least like take down as much information as you can so that you can learn from it and improve on the next one. It may turn out that $100 wasn't a good price because you had a whole lot of members who didn't have enough $100, but they did have like $40 that they really wanted to give. So then you might adjust the next one, find a cheaper venue where it's $40 a head, people come in, and then you do make the cost. Hopefully that helps answer that question. Jeff, you had a question?
Yes, so you talked earlier about, events where you're trying to bring in people that aren't just already libertarians. So what have you seen has been the most successful in actually attracting new people into libertarian events?
Anti-mandate work. Issue coalitions where it's like very like narrowly focused in scope. So the anti-mandate work that we did in LA County was by and far the most successful. You had people come in who were just like hardcore progressives who flipped. You would have people join. We also had people come and give us money and say explicitly that they were not joining, but they supported us. And I think that that will probably change depending on the area and depending on issues that are in the news. But if you have a single issue that people are very passionate about in your area, I would say do an event on that. It could be something like school choice, homeschooling. It could be, it could be something of like the city council has people in an uproar over, like they're going to zone chickens out of your neighborhood or, something like that. Any other questions? Mhm. 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 Jacob, you have any questions for me?
I do. We had an event this weekend uh, at a gun show. It was fine. It wasn't super successful. There wasn't a lot of people there. Um, are there specific places that you would recommend for holding like a booth type area to attract people? Is there specific events, specific places? I mean, what is a good area to look for where you'll get a lot of foot traffic coming through, where you'll find people who do agree with us if only on that one issue?
For tabling specifically? Okay,
Yes.
so for tabling, I think a gun show is great. I don't know if there are large homeschool events in Texas, but that would also be one. I mean, I would basically just go down the platform and try to find events. And I also think just like large home and garden expos are potentially good places to table. Those cost more money, but large events at convention centers generally do turn people out. For tabling events, yeah, anything where there's going to be high foot traffic. I don't think tabling in front of the grocery store is necessarily that successful. Um, Maybe there are people who are really aggressive and assertive who have more luck at that, but that's one that I've found is kind of a bust.
Can I suggest something?
Yeah, please.
I think tabling outside of a DMV would probably be pretty successful from what I've seen.
Yeah, people
Going
are
where people are currently upset or mad at the government.
Yep.
So
if people are held hostage in line, if you can go through the DMV, like if you're signature gathering, legally we're allowed to do that. I try to take them a piece of candy or something to thank them too. I don't recall if we're allowed to actually set up a table, but I know that legally we're allowed to at least go with a clipboard there. Any other questions? Okay, if there's no questions, I'm going to walk you through one of the large events that I did, so you can get an idea of what a successful event looks like. So in 2013, I worked with a group called Monday Night Mission and Food Not Bombs, which is like the left-wing anarchist group, to
Sorry to interrupt, Angela. I don't know if you saw in the text, but Elizabeth had a question. Her audio is not working.
Oh, I did not. Sorry, I haven't seen it. How do we get the word out about the event? Social media throttles our pages. Yeah, I actually don't think that relying on social media is the best way to do it. So I would recommend that you try out a few different approaches. Find a podcast. I know, podcast. Ugh. Find a podcast that's not libertarian, that's in your area. Real estate is a really good one because real estate is like targeted towards people who are looking for things maybe in a particular area that has not that many listeners. Maybe they have like 10 to 20,000 listeners and they're people who listen regularly. See if you can run an ad on there for like cheap or next to nothing. You want to find ways to advertise to people who are going to potentially be in your area. And I think it's really good to start out by advertising to other libertarians, right? You want to wake up and activate people who share our views but are not necessarily politically active. But at a certain point, we sort of exhaust that. And that's when you want to break outside of that. You want to advertise in local bulletin boards. You want to do word of mouth through other people in the community who have like a little bit of notoriety. Let's see, besides real estate, cleaners, you want to put ads up. I always put like a little, I put notes up in all the community bulletin boards once I'm getting going, and restaurants definitely. And then, you can also try Google AdWords because that has not completely throttled us yet. So I do recommend you give Google AdWords a shot. But before you jump into all that, like you might want to like take at least a couple of weeks, I think, to really understand it, watch some YouTube videos on it, make sure that you get very granular with your advertising so that it's actually successful and you get the most bang for your buck. And then the other place that is sometimes overlooked, if you're looking not necessarily to have a social event, but to get together and really get something done, right? Like I have a call to action. I need 10 people who are passionate about this call, who are going to make phone calls. We're all going to get together in phone bank. We're going to work on passing this law or whatever. Go straight to city council and listen to all the people who are lined up to give public comment. Because those are people who are already pissed off about the government. They're mad and they're already activated and doing stuff. They probably just need a leader to go and help them get organized and become more effective. Hopefully that answers your question. That was a whole shotgun blast of ideas. Any other questions? Sorry, I didn't even look at the chat and scroll through it. All right. Well, if that's it. That's all I got. Thank you guys for having me.